This afternoon, we have the privilege of being with a candidate for the San Mateo Union High School School District.
Hi, my name is Ligia Andrade Zúñiga, and I'm running for the San Mateo Union High School District Board of Trustees, and I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
What do you believe, Ligia, is the most important characteristics of an effective school board?
I think that the most effective characteristics are the ability to understand all sides, to not be judgmental, to be empathetic, and to also understand the community that you're serving. In every governance board, the board should be able to understand the community that they're providing services to, while also understanding how to effectively create policy and regulation and programming to be able to reflect those communities. Without the understanding of both, especially the fiduciary responsibilities, without understanding all of those things and understanding the people that it's going to directly affect, I don't think there's a very good process, and eventually whatever is done, there's not going to be a balance, and so that's what I believe is the best.
What specific strengths would you bring to the school board?
Well, currently there isn't a lot of diversity on our board.
Mm-hmm.
I am a woman of color with a disability, specifically a Latinx woman of color. And the communities that we serve, we have a population of the community that are people of color. And we also have people with disabilities and a younger generation of people that are now getting more involved to create specific changes. I also have been heavily involved in the community for over 20 years. I've been involved with young adults that are people of color, primarily that have had a lot of situations that have caused them to be invisible. I've also been really involved in the disabled community in disability justice and disability rights. And we also are a community that is invisible. We're often not included in certain decisions. Mm-hmm. My family, my parents are immigrants from Guatemala. They came to the States in the 70s, before the Civil War. They met here separately. They came and they met here. And then they had my brothers and I. And understanding that reality of the communities that are in our district that are not from this country, that don't always understand the processes and are not included for that reason. And the language barrier is also an issue. It's unless you're really engulfed in those communities and you live that life, then it's really difficult to completely understand what's going on. Also, just being a mother of two boys that have gone through the district, that's another strength, I think. Both my sons went to Fiesta Gardens and to Abbott in the San Mateo Foster City School District. And then my older son went to Burlingame and then to Middle College. He played football at Burlingame. He has a learning disability, so we went through the IEP process since he was young. So I fully understand the IEP and 504 plan process in the schools. My younger son just graduated from Hillsdale, and he also did the football program. At both schools, I helped with the parent groups. At Burlingame, I helped in the parent group, and we started a Latino parent group because there was no representation for Spanish-speaking parents. And then with my younger son, I've been involved with the PTSO for about 5 years, and where we've really made sure that there's equal representation for all communities in our schools. Now, I'm very fortunate that my kids had a great experience through the San Mateo Union High School District. Mm-hmm. And now they're both in college. And so I'm very proud of that. It takes a lot to get to that point. And the thing is, though, that not everybody's the same. So we did have those opportunities, but not everybody does. So I really want to also lift up the kids that are in foster care, the kids that have been through the correctional system, all of the barriers that have come to their lives that have prevented them from certain things. Again, my children are very fortunate that they had a lot of support. The 504 plan and the AP process is very important. We need to give everybody the same fighting chance to be able to meet their educational goals and every goal that they would have for their lives, but also create opportunities for them to be able to participate. Along with the parents too, I think there needs to be a lot of education, a lot of understanding. And so I think because of my experience and with all these different groups of people, it really helps, specifically like being on boards and commissions that will elevate different types of communities, like the Commission on the Status of Women. I was on that commission for a while. The Teen Pregnancy Prevention Coalition, I was there for a while, and the Commission on Disabilities, the State Council for Independent Living, things like that, like a well-balanced understanding of what the communities are in this area. And then locally, right? So we have our schools. I think I have the ability to collaborate with different populations. I've been around all kinds of people for many years, and so understanding all of the different stakeholders, all of the different people who will be affected, I think that's one of my strengths, to be able to create community and to create unity in our district.
Yes.
And one last thing, sorry, I'm also bilingual. So that's very important in reaching people, to meet them where they're at and make them feel comfortable and make them feel heard.
Could you share with us a little bit about your background, where you went to high school and college? And
Sure. I was born and raised in San Mateo County, specifically Redwood City. I went to Sequoia High School, graduated from there. And then I went on to CSM and Kenyatta, and I got my A from CSM and transferred to Notre Dame de Namur University, where I received my bachelor's degree in human services with an emphasis in counseling and administration, and then went on to my master's degree in public administration. I've worked in so many different capacities: nonprofit work, government. So I was working for a nonprofit called Barrios Unidos for a little bit. I worked for the youth, for the Redwood City Youth Health Center. There I was part of the teen parent project that they had. And also I was a peer mentor. And then with the Barrios Unidos, I worked in prevention. So they were a gang prevention intervention program in San Mateo County. So I worked on the prevention side, working with the young kids that are going through the schools. And then I ended up working for the city of Redwood City, and working for the Redwood City Public Library, where literacy is so important to me. The library is just super instrumental in the lives of young people, and just adults. I think it's like one of those places that really, it's like one of those like warm places that people remember. And it's just full of so much, it's so rich in so much information. And then, going on to the county, I worked for public health, for the WIC program, the Women, Infants, and Children's program, and went on to work for the Juvenile Probation Department. When I worked for that department, on the side, I contracted with Each One Reach One, and we did life skills workshops for the girls in the hall. So that was actually one of my favorite things. Understanding what was happening in people's lives one-on-one, because it's one thing to read about things or to do case studies or whatever, but if you're not really understanding a human being by speaking to them, then that's the disconnection. Communication is super important. At that point, I had a car accident. It was 2009, and I rolled over, and in the process, I broke my neck. And so I severed my spinal cord, and I'm a quadriplegic now. I have a spinal cord injury. My children were in the car with me, and so they were really affected. But what was really interesting of the whole outcome of this is that they became a lot more well-rounded as people, going through the disability life with me. And I think it opened my eyes to a world that I didn't know. In my previous life, I saw people, but I didn't really see them. I think I heard about people, but I didn't really hear them. Not that I ignored the disabled community, but I didn't pay attention. And so I think that's part of what's happening or what happens is that we are not visible. We are not heard. We're not included. So that's why I got really involved in the disability justice movement. I worked for the Silicon Valley Independent Living Center early on after my injury. And I worked with the Olmsted program. So we were transitioning people out of nursing homes. The independent living community and movement, it's extremely important for people with disabilities to be able to live independently, to show that we're human beings just like everybody else, that we work, that we're valuable, that we're validated. And that really helps because people are usually warehoused and they're not taken into consideration. So then they end up with lack of services and inclusion. And so in the disabled community, we have a saying that's nothing about us without us. And so that's a big part of why I want to do this as well. So I learned that through them, to not allow for decisions to be made without you present, without a seat at the table. And so then I just started getting more involved. I was still on the Commission on the Status of Women when I was injured and on the Teen Pregnancy Prevention Coalition. But I then transitioned out and I ended up with the Commission on Disabilities and Public Authority Advisory and just a bunch of other disability advocacy groups, the board of directors for the Center for Independent Living, Center for Independence of Disability Individuals with Disabilities here in my area, and the California State Independent Living Council. But while my kids were going through school, despite having my injury, I still had to help because I'm still a mother and my disability doesn't prevent me from parenting my children. And so I really kept involved in the school systems because I wanted parents with disabilities to be visible. And I wanted them to see that they would be included and that they were still parents that can still contribute. And also with being a woman of color, oftentimes groups that help out aren't completely diverse. And so I really wanted to bring in that community and tie in to other community groups that we had that identified with certain communities. There's nothing wrong with having our own community groups because we should have our own support systems, but also it's important to communicate and to collaborate together because we are all one community. And without that conversation and that partnership, we cannot provide just any type of accurate support and accessible support for everyone unless we understand each other. So yes, so that's pretty much my background.
If you're elected, what are the top 3 concerns that you would like to have resolved or taken care of while you're in leadership?
So my number one concern is the accommodations and the compliance of the 504 plans and the IEPs. I think students with disabilities really need to be supported. There are a lot of things that really concern me about the process in the district. And I know the district can't provide every single thing, but it's important to know and have partnerships with other community-based services that could potentially provide certain types of supports and services that are needed and that are lacking that the district can't provide. It doesn't necessarily have to be extremely expensive either. What's interesting about that situation is that Ed Roberts was a very prominent figure in the disabled community. And Ed Roberts brought a lot of ideas around independent living and around people with disabilities being able to go to school and work. He actually went to Burlingame High School, so he is in our district. He lived in an iron lung for the majority of his life. Or actually, I think all of his life. He had polio. And so after Burlingame, he went to CSM, to the College of San Mateo, and then he went to Berkeley, and then he ended up working for the state of California. And that example is so important for kids with or students with disabilities, because representation matters tremendously. There is a gentleman that has a disability and that was super successful in his education, in his professional life, and that came out of this county. I'm not going to say that there weren't a lot of problems going through the system, in the district, because there were a lot of barriers. People denied him entry to schools. People denied him services. It took him a lot to graduate because people not only didn't understand, but they didn't want to understand. And so that is concerning to me. So I'm just hoping, that people see that we are trying to understand, and that we want to understand. I really want parents and students that with disabilities to be able to see that we represent them too, that we are inclusive of everybody, that their voices are not silenced. I also want to see an educational pipeline, a continuum between the elementary, middle district, to the high school district, to the community college district. And then also including the universities and trades and different types of other professional opportunities that students might have. Because not everyone, first of all, not everyone is the same. And so there need to be a lot of different opportunities. But also there needs to be a communication to be able to understand how to best serve our students. And also understanding that we are representing an adult school as well, and a continuation school. One of the things that with that we have to understand our foster youth. Again, with the COVID-19, some people have a place to stay all day long, but what happens to the foster kids? Kids that go through that system that have instability in their lives. And so that's another priority. And my last priority would be understanding how the representation matters. So I would like to reach out and be more in more in communication with families to understand what the district does, what the board does, what our responsibilities are, how people can get involved, and why they should get involved. And that will also have to have some accommodation. We need to have translation at our meetings every time, whether it be Spanish translation or Tagalog translation or Tongan translation or sign language translation. There are a few families that I already know in the district that are deaf, that identify as being deaf. And for them, how are they going to understand the meetings if there's no sign language interpretation? So that removes them from the process, and that removes them from having an opportunity to have a voice in the decisions that are made. There's also parents that work a lot and that don't have the opportunities to join. So there have to be opportunities to listen to recordings, to be able to participate remotely, even after Zoom. After COVID-19, because before it was really tough. Certain places didn't allow for video conferencing or remote conferencing because of either the Brown Act or Bilingual Act or whatever procedural rule they had. And so now there's an opportunity to change those systems to be able to include everybody. So I would like to do some sort of education, like an education workshop, or constantly being out in the community, under like so people can meet us and know who we are, know what we do, and feel comfortable enough to come to the meetings and understand that we're going to hear them. We have a group of people that are always helping, always participating, and that's fine. But why? What happens to everybody else? Why is it that they're not participating? And most of the time, it's not because they don't want to, it's because they don't have the access and the information to be able to do so. So I would really like to stay in touch with the community, with our in our district.
What else would you like to highlight?
March, we had a ballot measure on the ballot, Measure L, that was going to provide funding for redevelopment in our schools. And I really believed in that because a lot of our buildings and a lot of our structures are outdated and they need to be kept up to date because of so many needs that happen, and that things that change. For example, with the disability world, we are, and I know this is really small, but in on the Commission on Disabilities, I'm very proud to say that we advocated to the Board of Supervisors, and they passed a proclamation that would change all of the signs in San Mateo County, from saying handicapped. There was a removal of all of those signs because it's now, up with the times that we don't say words like that really anymore. They're outdated, they're archaic,
Yes.
and they have a really negative connotation. So I know that's a small thing, but things like that where there's changes that need to be made, our infrastructure changes, and there's also additions to our buildings that need to be implemented, and there's just so much that goes on with that, but it's important.
How's enrollment there? Is it good in San Mateo? You you,
For,
you
for
aren't having enrollment issues.
Some schools do and some schools don't.
Okay.
Sometimes some of the schools get overwhelmed with too much enrollment, and some of the schools don't have enough. For example, Aragon High School and San Mateo High School, they usually are at capacity, but Hillsdale High School still has a little bit of room. And it could be just location and certain types of programs that they have. Aragon has an amazing football team. And there's like always reasons why people go to specific schools. But our home school was Hillsdale. So again, it all really depends. I love Hillsdale High School because it has small learning communities, and the kids are divided up in different like types of groups, and so they know the same kids and the same advisors, the same teachers for 2 years, and then they switch to another quote unquote house, what they call them, the groups of kids, and I enjoyed it because I was really able to get to know the teachers and get to know the advisors
Yes.
from a tight knit a tight knit community like we did because my kids did bilingual immersion, and so coming from a tight knit community like that, they feed into certain schools, and so for some kids, it's the more familiarized settings are a little bit easier for them.
Okay. Do you want to talk a little bit about bilingual immersion?
Yeah, we were very fortunate that we were able to go through the bilingual immersion track here in the San Mateo Foster City School District, and into the high school district. So Fiesta Gardens is the school that does Spanish immersion. Yes, I speak Spanish, and both my boys were speaking Spanish as well, but predominantly at home because I am first generation American, we spoke a lot of English. And so it was tough to get the kids to really, really continuously keep speaking. They spoke to their grandparents and their family, other family we have, and things like that. But it's not the same to know the grammar, to know where to put certain punctuation, where, how to structure sentences, and what type of contacts and all that. So we thought it was a great idea, and the bilingual education system has a lottery process, so we were really fortunate to be able to go to those schools. And the communities are so tight. But what was really neat was seeing like all different kinds of kids speaking Spanish, and it's so important to know another language for so many reasons. The development and being able to be in a competitive world. And then just being inclusive of our neighborhoods and our communities. But then they go into the junior high district, and not all of the kids end up at that junior high. Some can opt out of the bilingual immersion track, and some can end up going to that school. There's also a problem with transportation and things like that. So for some families, it's more convenient to go to their home school. If it's too far, to go to the school that feeds into the bilingual immersion process, which is not, that's very unfortunate that would be a barrier. Anyhow, so then going into the high school district, the kids end up taking some pretty advanced Spanish classes, because by then they're fully immersed and fully just understanding both languages. So for example, in kinder, they start out 90-10, 90 Spanish, 10 English, and until it evens out fifth grade, 50-50. And so by then they're able to do that in junior high. But in junior high, they only get like 2 classes in Spanish. And then, they go on to high school and it's even less. But by then, they're fully bilingual. It's tough for the parents that don't speak Spanish, but they have so many supports. And there's tutoring that people can access. There's a lot of communication with the teachers. There's a lot of different programs and activities to like really fully immerse the community. At Hillsdale last year in 2019, we did our first ever Dia de los Muertos event. And that was neat. It was really nice to include a lot of the kids that are in ESL, and a lot of our families that are immigrants, and a lot of our families that are Latinos, and come together with other families that are not Latinos, or that are not Spanish speakers, just to understand what we do in our culture. So we have a big Spanish speaking Latino, Latina, Latinx community here in the district. And so that program is very important. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, there's been a lot of disconnections that have been exacerbated and brought to the forefront. It's important to provide technology to students. That's very important, especially for students that don't have access to technology. But there are a lot of other issues that go along with this pandemic that people don't really understand. It's not just about technology. There's people that have food scarcity. There's people that are losing their apartments. They're losing their homes. People aren't working. And that causes a lot of stress. If before like our housing crisis here in the Bay Area is ridiculous. And if before that was something that really affected our students, this is definitely going to affect them, stress-wise, mental health. So mental health needs to be addressed. There needs to be some opportunities and some suggestions for how to deal with stress for the students, because without tools, they won't be able to get through that. It directly affects their education. It directly affects the way they learn, and that will prevent them from being successful. Also, say there's abuse in the home. Well, now it's even more tough, because maybe there's kids that use the schools as a sanctuary. Maybe that's a place where they go, where it's a safe space and where they can go and feel comfortable. Well, that's no longer. So what do they have now? So we need to create some safe spaces for them. Also, parents that can't afford to live in a home with everyone having their own rooms. Some people live in just a bedroom with all their children, with a spouse or without a spouse, or two-parent home. And so that's tough because not only are parents trying to go to work and make money to feed their families, but
Mm-hmm.
now they have this online learning situation. And that's tough, you know, and when you're living in one room, do you have a quiet space to be able to do your work? Do all of the kids have access to technology at once? Is it going to, do they have high speed internet? There's just so many things, you know. Is there a troubleshooting service or tool that they can use in case something crashes and they don't understand the technology? Not everybody has the ability to understand how Zoom works and how all of these, you know, Microsoft Teams and all of these different things that we normally use, because it's just not something that they need to use if, like, in their normal lives before the pandemic. But it's it's very tough to understand every single thing, and I completely understand that. There's no way that every single issue can be addressed. But I think if we partner with community-based services and we ourselves do research and understand what's out there that can help our kids or continuously look for solutions, we might be able to help the majority of people. Also, just with food, there are a lot of different services in our county that provide food for people. But again, it's like, how are they going to get it to their home? Are they going to be able to store it? There's just, again, you know, like, there's all these tiny little things, but it's definitely concerning. Like I was saying about the mental health situation, it's it's depressing. And if you're inside, especially right now with the fires, if we're inside so often, we can't even absorb vitamin D to be able to regulate some of our depression or some of our moods, and that has a direct effect on that. Getting outside to get some fresh air, it's important, you know, to be able to, like, recollect. So again, all these different things that we really don't consider. Um, Social media, I know it has its negative parts, but I think that's their lifeline for the students. They're so engulfed in it because it's such a popular thing. But aside with that, they can reach out to their friends. They can feel a sense of community, which for young people, it's so important to know where they fit in this world. They're at a point in their lives where they're trying to figure things out on who they are and where they want to be, where they're going. And now with this, it's preventing them from being hands-on, from physically being present. So that's the second best thing. So there's so much ability to there's so much ability to be able to create just different tools for them, even if it has to do with social media. So again, you know, there's so many, but that's only if people have access to that. Because some parents, like I was saying earlier, either you pay your rent or you pay for Wi-Fi, you know, and so that's tough. Also, with COVID-19 has been a problem with kids that need extra help. For example, like kids with disabilities that need certain types of technology or certain types of one-on-one assistance or any type of other accommodation that students need because of their disability. That's also been jeopardized. Sometimes, like, yeah, we can provide Chromebooks and laptops and things, but are they able to have a screen reader on program on that laptop? Is there Dragon Naturally Speaking, the voice recognition software? Can we provide that? So there's so many different types of things. Somebody that needs an aid one-on-one, is that person going to be able, or is someone going to be able to help them while they're going through their studies and help them understand the material and things like that? Sometimes parents are working also all day, and they are the primary caregiver for their student, for their child, and so how is a parent going to balance their full-time job from home along with being an aide for that class? You know, so there's so many things, and some parents have more access to resources and some don't. So that really makes it tough. Supporting our youth, no matter what, is very important, especially supporting them enough to get them to their goals, just regardless of what situations they have. One thing that really, really helped me in my life that I will never forget is my school counselor at Sequoia High School. Her name is Dolores Sleeper, and she was one of the most understanding and motivational and loving people that I know. I got pregnant when I was 16, and I had my older son when I was 17. I had him in between, in the summer in between my junior and senior year. And so I was able to go back to my high school. But lucky for me that I was able to graduate on time because I had so many credits and I was a really good student. I had a lot of advanced classes, and I was involved. I was a cheerleader. I was in dance and drama, and I really tried to. I was really driven and for sure for my goals, and I made a mistake. And so having my son, my counselor, because she knew what my situation was and what my drive was like, she spoke to the administration, and because of her, I was able to stay on campus. I was supposed to go to the continuation school, to the school age mothers program, which there's nothing wrong with. But if a student has the ability to stay on campus and to stay at school for whatever reason, then yeah, they should have that opportunity. It shouldn't matter what people think. What should matter is their success, because they're still a student and they're still a human being. I did independent studies right before I went back to my high school because I had my son in August, and it was tough going through my junior year, being pregnant. It's obviously very apparent that happened. And as a student at that time, as a young person, I just remember the stares, and I remember the judgment and what people were saying, and that's tough on a young person. But again, because I had that support system, that really helped me to just break through all of that stuff and just keep it moving. And so when I went back to high school, there were times when I didn't have a babysitter. My son was like maybe 2 or 3 months old, and she watched him in her office for me. I had AP English at that time, and it was like first class of the morning, and I had to scramble sometimes because my babysitter didn't show up, or I didn't have anywhere to leave him, and she's like, no, she said, just bring him here. I'll watch him for half the day, and you go to class. I had, because of my schedule, I had the afternoons off. Afternoon, I would get to leave I would get to leave school because I didn't need to take any more classes. And so she just was super instrumental in the success that I had during high school. And my AP English teacher, he understood that I had this situation. There was a week that semester that my son was in the hospital. He had gotten pneumonia, and my AP English teacher was very supportive of the fact that I had to go from the hospital to school every day on the bus, So he was really understanding. And I was able to graduate from high school on time. Went to college. There were a lot of people that said that, that I probably wouldn't be college material because of my situation, that it would be a lot harder, that it just wasn't going to happen for me anymore. And that's not true. There are many young women that have the same situation in our district. And I just want to make sure that people that have situations like this are not discounted from success and from being acknowledged as people that can be assets to the community in the future. Same thing with kids that are incarcerated. They're people aren't necessarily bad people. It's circumstances they have and their environments sometimes that doesn't allow for certain types of paths. And there's so many reasons why people have these situations. So before the judgment, we need to understand what they're going through, and provide supports and provide tools for them that might not be the same as the average student. So I really want to emphasize this, because face value, we have a lot of assumptions and a lot of judgments, but you never know what people are going through and why why they made certain choices. That's not our business. That's not something that we need to analyze. But what we need to do is analyze ourselves and how we can be more supportive of everyone in our community. So I'm obviously really proud of my children.
Yes.
I'm their mom,
Yeah.
but I'm just really proud of their accomplishments. My older son, school doesn't come easy to him. There are a lot of supports that he had and a lot of help that we solicited to better help him in school. And luckily he did well and he graduated and now he's at the University of Utah. He was excellent at football. He has a really great talent. He's very talented with his body. He was an artist. He used to draw really well. So he's very creative. Now, after football, he discovered ballet. And so he is dancing ballet, and he's been dancing now since he was 19. And now he's 23. So that it's really neat. And he was dancing for a local dance company, but now he's dancing for Western Ballet in Mountain View when he's home. Right now he's home, obviously, because of the pandemic. But I'm so proud of that he is so creative, and he's such a great kid. He's very smart, and now he adores to read. He loves reading now. But before it was tough to get him to read anything other than Captain Underpants and Diary of a Wimpy Kid. But now he really is into a lot of things that are more mindful, a lot of things that involve social justice. And so that part of our lives is really important to him. My younger son, he was also a football player since he was young. And he did really well at Hillsdale. School comes a lot easier to him. Sometimes he, there's certain classes, obviously, that he really enjoys that are a little bit easier to do. But he's very open to different people's opinions and different people's realities. And so he really enjoys social justice as well. He's now studying journalism at Luther College in Iowa, and he's also playing football there. And so he's following his dream of playing football in college and getting a college degree. So for both of them, our question was never, are you going to go to college? Our question was always, where are you going to go to college? To not even give them even an inkling of not going. Although if they picked something else like a trade or I don't know, another type of professional track, then that would be fine. But just supporting them and pushing them, not giving them an option not to do something productive. And raising children is not easy. All parents know that. But I think the biggest most important thing that we had to do is understand how to communicate with each other. As parents, we want them to do certain things, and we want them to listen to us no matter what. But sometimes we have to take a step back and listen to what they want, and have them at least have some sort of input. That way that there is equity in our family, but obviously having, authority coming from their parents, but including them in the process of certain things help them comply a little bit more. So that was a little strategy that we used. But overall, I'm very proud of them, and I'm especially proud that they stand up for people. Being involved in our communities is really important. Standing up for what we believe in is really important. Being a voice for people who are not heard is important. Protesting and being out there marching and yelling to the rooftops what we believe should be a just society is extremely, extremely important. We need to hear our communities. But I believe that one of the most important things and one of the most important ways that we can create changes through voting and being involved in the process. You don't have to run for office. You don't have to be on a commission, or if you want to and you're compelled to, please do so. But at least going to a meeting that you see that is going to talk about an important topic or something that's going to affect you directly or affect your community is extremely important, because remember that representation matters. If we don't vote, we're not heard. Our opinions are not, or our needs are not counted. Sometimes we think, oh, our vote isn't going to matter, but it does. It does matter, and it is our duty, and it's also our right to vote. People have even died wanting to fight for the right to vote. People are, especially right now, people are neglected from voting, and people are taken completely out of the voting process. There's a lot of voter suppression, which is unacceptable. But this is all the reason why, even more, why we should vote. Because if we have the ability to do so and others don't, that's not right. We need to exercise that and even be part of the census. The census is completely correlated with certain funds that come into our districts. And without participating in the census, no one's going to know that in our communities we need X, Y, and Z. The only communities that are going to be counted and are going to be represented are the ones that filled out that survey. And without that, no one's going to hear us. So I don't know what type of negative talk there is out there, but if there's anything you can learn from this, is vote, participate in the census, and be part of the process. Join boards and commissions, run for office, and if not, sit in a meeting every so often. Volunteer. We need to be able to cultivate an understanding for our students in the voting process, how to vote, how to register to vote, and how to understand all the initiatives that will directly affect their communities locally and federally. School bonds, ballot measures, legislation, policy. That is extremely important. It's not just about candidates all the time. It's also about propositions that are on the ballot, and also other types of legislation that's going to come through, because that will directly affect their lives. So not only teaching young people about candidates, but also understanding what everything means and giving them the opportunity to understand that and to learn. But also, us as parents need to do the same. We have to lead as an example, and sit down with our kids and have that conversation. And if we ourselves don't understand, that's okay. We can ask, we can research, we can talk to our neighbors or friends. Our elections department is very open to teaching about how to go through the election process and how to register and all of that. So please educate yourselves and your children. Thank you.
Oh, Ligia, you've had a life. I tell you, and you're making such a difference. This is just great. Boy, I wish I had 500 votes
Aw,
to give
thank
you.
you.